Mar. All right, go ahead,
It,
handle your business.
it,
We
it's
need
all
to
great.
start doing more. We need to start doing more prayer before Barry start.
Right. It ain't gonna stop me now. So this is probably gonna be one of the wildest stories you guys have heard, probably in a long time. We're gonna tell you the story about this cat, man. They called him D-Ville. Dude had money. I mean, I hate to say it like this, but this nigga had all kind of hookups. He had wealth, and when he left, his house glowed. I mean, like something crazy. It had an aura around it. And when he would leave the house or his, whatever you want to call it, house dwelling, uh, when he walked outside, everybody was like, "Yo, David, what's up, my boy?" You know what I mean? They hollered at him. He was the man. He was the man. He had everybody wanted to be his friend, wanted to get down with what he was into, you know. And he had everything you can imagine he might ever wanted in life. He didn't have to worry about it. All he had to do was think about what he wanted to get, and boom, he could just go get it. It was open to his discretion. But one day, somehow DeVille's light got turned off. Man, I guess he didn't pay his bill or something. And this one particular day, he woke up and it was a little dim in the house. And he was like, what is going on around here? He was trying to figure that thing out, man. He went and checked, he checked the boxes and everything was right. He went and ran to his bill drawer. Where everybody got a bill drawer, and he could see that, oh, okay, he was a little late on the bill, but it had been paid. It was just a little late. So then he went out on the front porch, and he didn't see nobody out there hollering at him. Hey, DeVille, what's going on, my boy? He had lost a little bit of that glow he had before. Uh,
Yeah, so he had lost a little bit of that glow he had before, but he wanted it back. So DeVille was like, "Man, how can I go get this light? I need the light. I don't ever want to lose this light again." So DeVille, and one thing he ain't tell you, DeVille was his name, but they also called him Sat because he sat around a lot. He was really a lazy dude. He didn't do a lot of work, and his last name was Ann, so they would call him Satin. So DeVille, Satin, all that stuff. Sometimes he worked as a bellhop, so they would call him Bell. And then he was always last. You know how it is, A to Z. So there's like Bell Z, and then some of them started calling him Beelzebub. So he had a whole bunch of names, but the boy was on fire. Like Martin said, he had that money. That boy had that money, and bro, when I tell you he had the money, so he attracted a lot of people. He attracted a lot of people, and you know what I'm saying, to them ladies, he would just be like, "Hey, it ain't tricking, so you're gonna have to do something strange for this piece of change." So he would have them kind of, all out their way doing any and everything for that money that he made rain. Now when he had to approach the guy that had the light, and this guy name was Y. His first name was Y Whoa, and his last name was Erd, and they just put it together, the word. So it's like, hey, if you need the light, you gotta go to the word. You gotta go to the word to get the light. And so he was approaching. The light set up on the hill, because if the light's on the hill, they can't be hidden. So the light's on the hill, and everybody looking up to the light. And Mr. DeVille, aka Satin, aka Beelzebub, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes some people call him Red Man. It just depended. But he was like, I am gonna ascend up to the top of this mountain. I see Mr. Word sitting on the throne, but I want to sit on the throne. I want to control this light. I want to be the one in control.
Yeah, so DeVille, while he was looking at the top of the mountain, Roland told you, he was lazy. This dude was lazy. He didn't want to do nothing but cause trouble. But while he was looking up at the top of the mountain, he heard some gargling down in his gut. His stomach was growling. He started getting a little hungry. You know what I mean? But he was lazy. So, he decided to go ahead and go to the grocery store. He get to the grocery store, and he saw these nice, big, juicy roast He was like, he grabbed those roasts. He was like, "Oh yeah, these joints right here are nice." You know, he was looking at them. He was like, "Oh yeah, I'm." He like these joints right here. They gonna get some good taken care of. You know what I mean? So he get to the cash register, and everybody's looking at him like, they looking at him a little strange because he's usually like Martin said, he's popular. Everybody's always wowing over him. You know what I mean? But this particular time, he was looking a little sunk in. So not only was he hungry, but what he didn't know was he had a tapeworm. You know what I mean? So everything he thought, he was looking at it like scrumptious, like he wanted to eat it. You know what I mean? So uh that was just one dude behind him. He was the weed man. It don't matter what they called him, he was the weed man. So you know, he was like the weed man saw him with the meat, and he was like, what you gonna do with that? He said, "Oh man, I'm about to smoke these joints." And when he said it, it triggered the weed man. He immediately went into weed selling. And he just started anybody who was around him right there, he just started trying to sell them a sack. He's trying to sell them a sack of weed. But what DeVille didn't know was the trigger. There was anything that came out of his mouth was actually trigger words, and it would cause folks to do the things that whatever he said.
Man, so our guy Satin, DeVille, had hooked up with the weed man. He had decided he wanted to get something to eat and throw this party. And he wanted as many people to come to the party. But the problem he has, our guy Satin, is that the people who would come around only wanted to come around because he had all the money. That's even the reason why he worked as a bellhop, because he was trying to find real relationships with real people that really wanted him for more than just his money. So as he's looking around to get people to come to this party, the weed man is saying these trigger words that make people do what the weed man wants them to do. And he said, "Hey, tell them to come to the party." So our guy Satin decides he's going to throw the biggest party the city has ever seen. He's inviting friends. He's inviting people that he thinks actually cares about him to kind of get to the truth, because he's got the truth teller with him. He's got the weed man to ask him the hard-hitting questions. So finally, he's going to be able to figure out who's really there for him and not for his bread. So the night of the party comes. It's jumping. It's live. I'm talking about the best party the city has seen. It's popping and it's packed. Our guy is having a great time. Satin is setting up. He's dancing. He's enjoying food. He's getting his feel of all the energy that he ever thought he wanted in life. But something still feels off. Something feels weird about the night to him. I'm having fun, but I'm not satisfied in what's going on. And the people around me are looking more and more suspect as the night goes on. He starts to feel a little bit agitated, a little bit irritated. And we didn't notice, but our guy Satin had a temper problem. And he's been dealing with some anger issues that he really hasn't had resolved. And as we get to the climax of this night, he's feeling like maybe he needs to do something. I don't know, but it's coming up.
And so, and what they didn't tell you about DeVille was that, he was really a homeless dude, and he was delirious, right? So DeVille, he said he was talking about his lights went out. It was really he was sitting out about the back of this store in the alley, and when the people shut the stop down for the night, the lights would go out. But DeVille had all these raggedy stuffed animals that he had set up around him. Those was his friends. But he thought they was real people. And so then all these people would come at the edge of the alley and watch DeVille, put on a show every day, like, because he would act and talk and do the voices for all the teddy bears and everything. So that's how they were saying it was trigger words, because he would say, "Hey Teddy, don't you want to dance?" And then he would start wiggling the teddy bear around, and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, I feel good, DeVille. You got me moving. You got me moving." But sometimes, his delirium would get, and that's when he would get mad. He'd get pissed, and he would always pick on the little soldier man. And he said, "God damn it, soldier." And so then he got that attitude, and he starts shaking it. "I hate you. I hate you. You just make me so darn angry all the time. You don't like me. You're just here for my money." And you know what I'm saying? And he pulled out a bunch of old toilet paper, used toilet paper at that too. So you know what I'm saying? So he grabbed it and he started counting. 1, 2, 3. You see, I'm flossing, baby. I'm flossing. That's that stanky dough right here. You know what I'm saying? And so everybody was just at the edge of the alley, just laughing at the show. They was like, "Oh man, it's about to get good now. Watch out."
DeVille spotted this one honey across the way from him, and he looked, he cocked his head down and said, "Oh, girl, you look good," thought to himself. But her mouth, she, for some reason, he noticed that she always had a gaping, she always looked like this, you know, and so she had her mouth open all the time, and he was wondering what was going on. This was one of the honeys always had his parties though. It was a couple of them, but she was real light skinned and had this like plastic like looking hair. And so DeVille went over to her and he grabbed her hand. And he said, "Come here, girl." He had exhausted himself fighting with that dumb, soldier man. But when he got to her and he said, "How you doing?" And she said, had her mouth open, like, "I'm doing well." She didn't say that, but that's what he was, that's what he thought he heard her say. So anyway, he started dancing with it and grinding on this little honey dog. But he had a problem with, he was a troublemaker, right? So he started smacking this lady on her rear end, and he didn't hit her hard, but when he hit it, she like flew across he was real violent. It just seemed like he was being real violent with this woman with the open mouth. So he ran across over to the crowd, and he picked her up again, and he started, kind of choking her out and everything, and her mouth got wider, like she was really enjoying this activity that DeVille was, doing with her. But in essence, what he didn't realize, well, I'm gonna wait. That's a different story. That's a different story. But DeVille was naughty, and so he said, "Oh, you got your mouth open like that? Oh, okay. Well, how about this?" And then, he pulled out.
So yeah, he's like, "Oh, you got your mouth wide open, huh?" So he pulled out some sausages because he always watched the Cooking Network, and he really wanted to be a cook. He felt like that was his way to go to get him out of homelessness if he would feed the people. It didn't matter what he fed them. The sausages was filled with all type of stuff, but nobody really cares. Let's just be honest. If you eat sausages and hot dogs, who really cares what's in it? So he was like, "Bam." He pulled out the sausage. He was like, "Open your mouth," and he just kind of dangling it over there, dangling it over to her. And then at this point, E.T. showed up. This was his initials. It wasn't E.T., the guy that sat on the bike, but E.T. They just really called him Ed. That was his last name, Mr. Ed. Some people say E.T. You know how we do. His first name was Prof. So the prophet showed up, and he was like, "Oh my God!" Like he had never seen him before. He was like, he almost bowed down to him. Like this prophet had like an aura around him. And the prophet was like, "Man, what are you doing? Like, come on, this ain't you. This ain't really you." And he was like, "Nah, it is me," because he had a temper. He was like, "How you gonna tell me about me? You don't know nothing about me." And he was like, Actually, I do. Ain't you that homeless guy who was growing up that got bullied and people always picked on in class? And instead of calling you set in, they called you some other foul language." He's like, "Oh my gosh, this man's telling me everything about me." He he was like, "Oh snap!" They're like people on the side like, "Duh, that's Mr. Prophet." And he was like, "Man, Mr. Prophet, I just don't know, man. I'm lost. I'm out here lost in these streets. I don't know which way to go." So he's like, "Okay, cool. I'll tell you which way to go. You need to go down this block, turn left, and go down that narrow alley." But he was claustrophobic, so he didn't want to go down that narrow, so he chose the wide alley. And he didn't know that with the wide alley, there was so much destruction down there, but it looked beautiful. You wouldn't know until you got about halfway down that wide alley, and then all type of wild stuff would begin to happen. So he starts to go down there dancing down the wild alley, because remember they told you he dancing so bad. It was like, oh, he moved like a serpent.
And then all of a sudden, while he was dancing down the alley, he heard this real loud, and he's like, "What the heck is that?" And then next thing you know, he woke up. He was laying in bed, soaking wet. He was soaking wet. He peed the bed. He was asleep all this time. He was dreaming, but you know what I'm saying. When he started having these crazy dreams, you know what I mean. Well, what happens is, you know what I'm saying. He pees the bed. Now his DeVille was his that was his alias. His real name was Ray. You know what I'm saying? Raymond. You know what I mean? And Raymond, he jumped out of bed. You know what I'm saying? And he had his bed was so way he peed the bed, but he used to try to hide it from everybody that he peed the bed. But everybody knew because they could smell it on him. So he get out the bed and he trying to hurry up and get himself cleaned up and everything so that nobody know that he peed the bed. And then while he was in the bathroom trying to clean himself up, somebody started knocking on, boom, 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 boom. Come on, it's time. It's time. And then he was looking like, it's time what? You know what I mean? Boom, 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 knocking on the door. It's time. So then he kind of peeked out the bathroom to see who this was knocking on his door. So he got ready to go to his bed to try to clean up all the wet sheets and everything. And they just bust in the door, boom, and they had on all these white clothes. They was orderlies. He was in one of those places, you know what I'm saying? And now he now realized that, you know, these to him in his head, these was the enemy. They the enemy. The enemy's coming. And one of the orderlies started running over to him to try to grab him and slipped on a pee. And when he slipped on that pee, he hit his back. Bam! And Raymond started laughing. And the old boy, he didn't like that. And he told his partner, he looked at his other partner, he was like, look, man, close his mouth for laughing at me. And the old boy got ready to punch him in the face, and then he slipped on the pee. Bam! Fell right on top of the other orderly.
And all this craziness was happening because Ray was delusional from all the medication he had been taking, because he was actually taking some pills because he's an astronaut and he was getting ready to go outer space. Okay. So after all this madness is happening, Ray had to get himself together because launch was in T-1 hour. So Ray had to get himself cleaned up. The pee happened because of the pills he was taking. Got himself washed up, put on his uniform, and had to hightail it down to mission control. He got down to mission control, and they let him know that everything had been changed. You no longer going to the moon. Now you got to go to Venus. Okay, we're gonna send you to Venus, and on your way there, we're gonna reroute you after you go there to Mars. Okay, so he said, okay, I got to be gone away from my family for the next 20 years. What is it that I'm gonna need on this journey, right? So he looked in his bags and saw what he had packed previously, and he said, man, this is a crazy bag of stuff that I got in here. I got a basketball. I got extra shoelaces. I got my iPod for some music. I got a birthday cake that's already been baked. What am I gonna do with this? And a pair of handcuffs. I don't understand this bag, but it must have been a reason why I put these things together. So he grabbed his luggage, headed down that long hallway, getting ready to take off and head on this crazy intergalactic journey. Ray, after all he had been through, all the crazy night's dreams, was now set to take off and do something incredible. Right? One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. He was ready to go forth and make something happen. But he had almost forgot he needed to take his monkey with him. So he went back and got his monkey Bubbles, and they headed down the hallway to get the journey going.
So him and Bubbles land on Venus, right? And so, you know, there was a village, and the village was full of people. And there was a cop, there was a Native American guy, he was dressed up. And you know what I'm saying, there was a couple of other people, and you know, there was these sacred letters that they had, and they would all do them with their body, and it was Y M C A, and he couldn't figure out why the village people just kept chanting that over and over again. You know what I'm saying? He was like, you know, they just be like, "Welcome to Venus, Y M C A." He was like, "What the heck is going on?" You know what I mean? And it was all men. And he noticed that these men were a little extra friendly. Like, and he couldn't figure out why, you know, the village people was, you know, so nice to him and Bubbles, you know. And he was like, you know, they try to get a little too close to me for whatever reason. And so he got you know, a little space from them, and he ran into you know, this guy named Irvin, and he was like, you know, Irvin, you know, something's wrong with my ship. And you know what I'm saying? He was like, I was wondering if you could help me get some repairs because I got to get to Mars. And Irvin was like, you know, say, yeah, I got that magic. You know what I mean? You know, so it was, you know, magic Irvin. And, Irvin was like, if you give me that basketball, you know what I mean? And he was like, see, I knew there was a reason I packed this basketball. You know what I mean? And so Irvin was like, I'll fix your ship with my magic for that basketball. And he was like, cool, okay, you know what I'm saying? So now Irvin's working on the ship, and he had his uh um accomplice. He had his apprentice there. And you know what I'm saying? He was like, yeah, I need you to come and help me. And his apprentice name was Anakin.
After he picked up that pretend phone and made a call to Anakin, he set it down. It was make believe, so he didn't really have a phone in his hand. And then he smacked DeVille, Raymond, because of all of these different names. I'm gonna tell you why he had all these names. Michael was his therapist's name. Michael smacked him across the face. Pow! I keep telling you, you are not an astronaut, man. Snap out of it. You're not an astronaut, and you don't play basketball. And he set up real quick on the couch. He was at his therapist's office for the 5th time that week. Set up on the couch, and he said, "Oh, okay, I'm sorry, man. I always get into this." He smacked him again. Pow! On the other side of his face. He said, "Man, stop apologizing. I told you. Why did you come to my office again this week?" He said, "Because I met this young honey, this darling." Pow! He smacked him on top of his head again. He said, "Lucifer." That was his middle name. Lucifer. You delusional, bro. You need to snap out of this fantasy world that you're in. And the reason you're here is because you started a riot in the prison. You keep starting riots in the prison with your foolishness and your instigation, and you start to fight, and then you hide and get your imps and your homies to go out here and gang some other cats. And that's why you're here, man. We're trying to get you to get your act together, but I think it's a little bit kind of late for you. You're gonna have to pay for these crimes to cause everybody else to commit. So stand up, Lucifer. I got something for you.
So he told him to stand up, and then he just started crying, man. Mr. Lucifer started crying and turned into a baby, and his counselor felt real empathetic for him because his counselor had been through a lot with him. Like coming up, his counselor had found out that his mom, who was a crackhead, he never knew who his dad was. So he was a bastard seed. That's what everybody said. Lucifer, you're a bastard seed. And he actually was a smart cat. I ain't gonna lie. He started off smart, singing in the choir. He was the best singer in the choir, but his mom just, didn't treat him right. He would come home like, mommy, look at the good grades I got. And she was like, I don't care nothing about no grades. If the rocks ain't popping and I ain't getting them cocked, like she would just say some cockadoodle stuff, which is kind of what led to him and his whole split personality, because he would have to go into a fantasy world to escape from the norm, because his mom would just be like, go in that room, cut off all the lights. That's why he was always searching for a light as an adult. She sent him in a room, and his friends had found out that his mom would always send him in that room, and it's like, man, you the Prince of Darkness. That's what they start calling him. Like, bro, you ain't nothing but the Prince of Darkness. And we know he wet the bed. So then they was like, oh, he's the Lord of the Flies. Because when he would wet the bed, all the flies would come. Because his mom wasn't washing those sheets. His mom didn't even she sold her washing machine to one of the neighbors because she a crackhead. That's what crackheads do. So growing up, he never felt loved. And he was just telling his therapist, like, you know what I'm saying? I don't feel loved. And his therapist was like, who am I talking to today? Because he had so many split personalities. And he was like, it's me, Raymond. I'm the one that pay you. He's like, Raymond, how could you not feel loved? Everybody loves Raymond. And then it happened to be a guy walking by at the time, and this white guy, he kind of got the idea for a story for a show, but that's a whole nother thing. So remember, he's just thinking he's a astronaut. So this girl named Tress comes in. Well, last name was Tress, first name was Temp. Temptress comes in, Temptress drops her dress, but Temptress has a wiener. And he says, Houston, we got a problem.
And so when this dude was a psychomaniac. So when she put her pants down or dropped her dress, and he saw what she had, he didn't freak out right away. You know what I'm saying? He knew that Lucifer wanted to be an astronaut deep down inside. So when Lucifer saw him drop his pants, he was like, "What the heck are you doing?" You know what I'm saying? I thought, and while he was saying I thought, she was like, "Well, um, I have to get into my astronaut uniform." You know what I'm saying? Are we still going? Are we still getting? Are we still going to go outer space? He's like, "Outer space, outer space. I ain't going nowhere until you put your uniform on," like that. But he was a maniac, and what ended up happening, unfortunately, he was like, once you get your uniform on, we can go out of space. Where you want to go? And then she looked up, or he looked up with a devilish grin, and he was like, Uranus. And looking for he freaked out. He freaked out and killed him. You know what I'm saying? He was like, I already see what's under that dress, and now you talking about you want to go to Uranus, and he was like, not on my ship. You know what I mean? So, you know, this is the whole reason that he was in that doctor's office, because what nobody knew was he killed old boy right there in the alley, because old boy, he thought old boy was, oh, he wasn't gay. He really wanted to go to the planet Uranus, but Lucifer didn't take it that way. He thought he was talking about something else. You know what I'm saying? And he took old boy out and killed him. So why he was, when when the doctor kept asking him, "Why are you in my office? Why are you in my office?" You know what I'm saying? That's why he was in prison, for that whole reason. You know, um, but everybody else in prison thought he was just there because of something else that happened. But that's another story. But the whole reason he was there is because he took old boy out, because old boy really wanted to go to space and wanted to take Lucifer with him.
So now Lucifer, standing there in his therapist's office, deep in the heart of the prison, now feels more trapped than ever as things start to look more clear to him. He realizes that he's locked up and he's doing life. He ain't never getting out. He said, they keep saying I'm trouble. They keep saying I'm a problem. They keep saying that I cause all these issues. I'm going to really show them. It's time to start a riot. It's time to start a prison break. So Lucifer began to plan how he was going to break out the prison and cause a disturbance. Went back to his cell and start digging like Shawshank. Start digging, and hiding tools, making a shank out of toothpaste and toilet paper. Waiting for that guard to make his last round. As the CO makes his last round, he picked his lock and was able to open his door. He then attacked the officer right then, right on the top tier. They're going at it. Blows, body shots, shots to the head. It's back and forth. Who's going to win the fight? Lucifer finally kind of gets control of the officer, putting him down. As the officer reaches for his radio, trying to call for backup, trying to grab his mace, Lucifer locks in on him and starts choking the life out of him. The officer's eyes roll back in his head, and Lucifer knows I finally got him. I'm on top of the situation. And the officer slowly lets go of his radio as he lets go of life. Lucifer then goes from door to door, opening every single cell. Go free, go crazy, go crazy, go crazy, go crazy. He lets out inmate after inmate after inmate, and the place pops off completely. Fires getting started, alarms raging in. They call for backup, the special ops unit to come in and get control of the prison, and it's all out war everywhere. Lucifer looks around and looks at the chaos that he's created, smiles and says, finally, I have a sense of peace and I have a sense of control.
And so, yeah, Lucifer was happy, you know what I mean? And he was like, yeah, finally, things are going the way I want them to go. And the everybody was getting, so chaotic in there. And Lucifer somehow was able to convince half of the guards that he was in charge. So somehow, you know what I mean? Like Lucifer, convinced half the guards to fight on his side. You know what I mean? And he was like, what? And the warden, you know what I'm saying? His name was Geody. You know what I'm saying? And so Geody, they had to call Geody. You know what I'm saying? But Geody, man, when he came, he shut stuff down. Like it wasn't no if. And what they said was he had the final say. You know what I'm saying? So Geody came in there, and he was like, "Oh, okay, we got to end this because we can't let this go on." And the thing about Lucifer, people was intimidated with him because he had this problem with his scrotum, and you know what I'm saying, he had really overly enlarged balls. So they would drag on the ground a lot, you know what I'm saying? So they'd be like, look, looking for that old dragon, you know what I mean? But, you know, they would confuse people, so they called him a great deceiver, you know what I mean? Like, somehow, you know, all that bouncing and dragging around, you know, he was able to fool a lot of people. But, you know, once G.O.D. got there, he wasn't falling for none of his tricks, you know, and he had encountered him in the kitchen, and it was just G.O.D. and Lucifer. And Lucifer was like, you know, G.O.D. looked kind of hungry. Maybe I can tempt him with some of this food. And you know what I'm saying? He was like, look, man, you know, if you let me up out of here, I'll let you get in the fridge and get all the steaks, all the ham hocks, all the turkey, you know what I'm saying? It's just Thanksgiving. They got pumpkin pie in there, man. And you know, G.O.D. said, look, man can't live by bread alone, and you can't live either. And you know what I'm saying? He busted him upside the head, set him on fire. And the kitchen was called the lake, and so you know it was called the lake of fire ever since. After that, you know what I mean, and that's what it was. That's how that story ended, right there.
You know what?
Man.
I thought that's you know what? I thought that's how that story ended. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what happened, man. Yeah,
That's how.
Jody came in and took care of it, man.
Sound about right.
That's Hell's Kitchen for real right there. That's Hell's Kitchen.